So we are on page 8 in your notes. And I want to take a look at some more examples of the last type of problem that we looked at together yesterday. So the last problem we looked at together yesterday was on page 7, and we were sort of synthesizing everything that we had looked at up to this point. So we had talked about independent versus dependent variables and how I decided which was which. We talked about continuous versus discrete variables and how that impacted whether I should connect the points that I had or not. We talked about if I should put arrows on the ends of my graph or not. All of that stuff we talked about yesterday, and then finished with this problem where we connected it all together, okay? So we're gonna look at the same thing again today on page 8, same type of problem. So this one says, you use a Celsius thermometer when measuring temperature in science class. Your teacher asks you to show the relationship between Celsius temperature and Fahrenheit temperature. Use this equation to convert the temperatures. Graph the data in the table. So this problem is a little different because they gave us a little formula, a little equation here to use. Whereas for your homework problems and the problem that we saw on page 7 last time, they gave us a description of how the problem changed each time, of what I added each time in most cases. So I could have, if I wanted to, written a little equation because it would have been 2.1 gallons for every minute per every time unit. So if I wanted to, I could have written a little expression for that. Here, they've just given us a formula to use since it's a little bit more complicated than just add this or multiply by this. So what I'm going to do is take my temperature in Celsius and plug it in for C in this formula. So this would be 9/5 times -10 plus 32. That's how I'm going to use that formula. I would like you now to go ahead and find all of our Fahrenheit temperatures using this formula. So you're going to plug each Celsius temperature in for C to get your Fahrenheit temperature. So you can use your calculators. If you don't have your TI Inspire today or it's not charged, you can use your phone calculator because the order this is written in, it will follow order of operations for you. I also have some extra calculators up on the table here if you need to borrow one. So I want you to go ahead and find our temperatures here. Okay, when it's negative 10 degrees Celsius, what's the temperature in Fahrenheit? We should all have it. You guys can all say it. 14, yeah. How about when it's negative 5? 23. How about when it's 0? 32. You hopefully didn't have to type that one in. How about when it's 5? 41. And when it's 10? 50. Should be 50. So now I want to plot this information. But before I can do that, I need to determine what's the X and what's the Y. What's my independent and what's my dependent? Yeah. My independent variable is degrees Celsius. That's what I measured. And then I converted to degrees Fahrenheit. So the temperature I got in Fahrenheit depended on the temperature I got in Celsius. So I'm going to label degrees Celsius down here and degrees Fahrenheit up here. Now, this problem is a little different than the ones that we looked at yesterday in class and from your homework, because I've got some negative values here for my X variable. Okay, so yesterday we only looked at the first quadrant with that problem we did together. Your homework was all in the first quadrant, but for this one, we're going to need quadrants 1 and 2, since I've got some negative X values here. So I'm going to try to pick, I think this one's the center. We'll find out. I'm going to put my y-axis here. My x-axis can stay at the bottom. And then since my Celsius temperatures are relatively small, pretty close together, I'm just going to label by ones here. This is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then negative 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now my Fahrenheit temperatures are more spread out. I get some larger values here. So I'm going to go by 2s for my Fahrenheit scale. So this would be 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24, 26, 28, 30, 32, 34, 36, 38, 40, 2, 4, 6, 8, 50. So my last point is going to be off my graph a little bit. 1 point slightly off your graph is okay. Now we can plot our points. So negative 10, 14, negative 5, 23, 0, 32, 5, 40, 41, and 10, 50. There we go. So there's my data. Should I connect to these points? Yes, why? Yeah, we talked about continuous versus discrete variables yesterday. Discrete variable we said is something like shoe size. You can have a shoe size of 7 or 7.5 or 8 or 8.5 or 9. You can't have a shoe size of 7.21. Okay, I don't have all the options in there. I have gaps in the options for shoe size. But for temperature, I can report a temperature that's as many decimal places as I want. Okay, I just need to make sure I have really sensitive equipment. Okay, so we could have a data point in here, or one here, or one here, or one here. All of that's okay. Stuff in between the points we have is okay. So this would be continuous. Temperature is continuous. So we want these points to be connected because temperature is continuous. So I'm going to connect these. And then my last question to complete my graph, do I want arrows on the ends of this? Why? Yeah, so I am not limited by the temperatures that I've selected here. We could have temperatures lower than 14 degrees Fahrenheit, right? That's the thing. We live in Illinois. We're very familiar with temperatures lower than 14 degrees, so I can have an arrow here. And then we can also have temperatures higher than 50 degrees. Right now outside, it is warmer than 50 degrees Fahrenheit, so we can also continue in that direction. So arrows on both ends here. Questions for me on page 8. Okay, I do want to take a look at the homework problems you had on pages 9 and 10, but I want to give you a couple of disclaimers before we do that. We're going to look completely at page 9 and at everything on page 10 as well. That is not going to be our normal. So we will not always look at every homework problem that you were assigned, okay? If you have questions on any part of your homework, you are always welcome to ask, either in class or see me before or after school. If you're working in study hall and you get stuck on something or you want to check your work, remember that I scanned our packet in, including the homework problem. So you can check your work with what's on Google Classroom, okay? If you don't have what I have, then please ask questions. That's your cue to ask some questions if you don't have the same stuff that I have. Also, just remember, this is a tool for you to check your work or help answer small questions. But if you, when you do your homework, just pull up Google Classroom and copy what's posted there, that's not going to help you learn anything. And when you go to take a quiz or a test, if you've done all your homework by copying it from the packet, there's not a key that you can pull up for the quiz or the test to be able to copy down the work for that. So you're going to get stuck when it comes to that. So please don't put yourself in that situation. Okay. So we're going to go over 9 and 10. We will not always go over all your homework, but please ask questions if you get stuck. Okay. Okay. So page 9. Same idea. We've got some sort of scenario here. We're going to find some data points, graph them, and then answer some questions about our graph. So on page 9, check your work as I go through this. So the drive-in movie theater charges $10 admission per car and $2.50 admission per person in the car. So it's $10 for the car plus $2.50 for every person that's in the car. Assume a maximum of 7 people in the car. So we've got like a minivan and that's as many seats as I have. Take an input-output table, blah, blah, blah. So I don't have anything in my table yet. So before you even start setting up the table, I want to decide what's the independent and what's the dependent variable. So what would be the independent variable here? Number of people, right? I am deciding how many people to take in my car to this movie. Number of people. So then what's the dependent variable? The cost, yep. So this would be number of people, and this would be cost. So as I start to set up my table to get some data points, what's the smallest number that makes sense to use for number of people? 1. Why not 0? Yeah, I have to have someone in the car at very least to drive it to the place where I'm going to go see the drive-in movie, right? Okay. It wouldn't make a ton of, I know they have like the Teslas that can drive themselves that they're piloting right now, but they're not going to drive-in movies, right? The car's not going to go see a movie by itself. So we need at least one person in our car. And then it said up to 7 people, maximum of 7. So I'm going to fill in my table up to 7. And now the cost for one person would be $10 for the car plus that $2.50 admission for the person. So that would be $12.50. And now every person that I add is going to be another $2.50. So For 2 people, I need to add $2.50. So that would be $15. Add another $2.50 and I'm at $17.50. Add another $2.50 and I'm at $20. Another $2.50 and I'm at $22.50. Add another $2.50 and I'm at $25. Another $2.50 and I'm at $27.50. So I have a table of values. Now let's graph. So we know that number of people is our X, since that's our independent variable. And then cost is our Y, since that's our dependent variable. We talked about this briefly yesterday, but I want to try and label my axes so that my graph is on my graph spread reasonably, not a bunch of stuff way off the graph, not super crammed together. So you labeled your cost one like specifically by what you knew it was going to be. That would work. I'm going to label mine slightly differently, but I'm sure you got a very nice graph and you were able to plot everything like on nice corners too if you did it by 250. That would work. Yep. I'm going to label my people axis, my x-axis, every other. So I'm going to skip 1, 1, skip 1, 2, skip 1, 3. I could certainly fit 1 through 7 in this little like chunk right here, but then again, my points are pretty crammed together and I can usually see patterns a little bit better if I give them a little space. So 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then I'm going to do mine close to how you labeled yours. I'm going to do mine by 2s. So every point I have won't land on a nice corner, but it'll be similar to what yours looks like. So I'm going to go by 2s. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24, 26, 28, 30. And then I'll plot my points. So 1, 10, 12, 50, 2, 15, 3, there's 17, 50, 4, 20, 5, 22, 50, 6, 25, 7, 27, 50. There's my data. Should I connect these points? Why not? So you talked about it from the perspective of what the cost is going to be. My cost is going to be 10 plus some multiple of 250. Yeah, the reason my cost is going to be 10 plus a multiple of 250 is because, can I have a part of a person? No, they're not going to give me like a discount because somebody in my car is like really short, right? Either I've got 4 people in the car or I've got 5 people in the car. Number of people we talked about yesterday is a discrete variable, not connected, because number of people is a discrete variable. I have to have whole people. So I don't want to connect these because I can't have this point right here. I only have the ones that I see. Could I have arrows? Go ahead. Yeah, I don't want arrows on this either. No arrows. Because we can't have less than one person. We talked about that a minute ago when we talked about what's the reasonable lowest number to use for our table. We have to have somebody to drive the car. So we can't have less than one person or more than 7 people. It told us in the problem we can fit a maximum of 7 people in the car. So I can't have an arrow over here because we can't have more than 7 people. Questions for me on page 9? Okay, let's take a look at your other homework problem from last night. That was page 10. On page 10, problem number 4 says a gym is offering a deal to new members. Customers can sign up by paying a registration fee of $200 and a monthly fee of $40. Make an input-output table, blah, blah, blah. I want to start again by asking, what's our independent and dependent variables? Sean, I haven't heard from you in a minute. Alex, sorry. I'm sorry, what did you say? Time would be the independent variable. And then our dependent variable would be money, cost. Yeah. Months is a measure of time. So if you wrote months here, that's fine too. And I'll put it up here. That way we've got both represented. Months and the cost. What's our smallest reasonable number to use for months? Why 1? Why not 0? Yeah, so think about what 0 would represent when we talk about months. That would be, I paid the registration fee, but I didn't actually really join the gym. Okay, so if I'm going to join the gym, I'm going to sign up for some period of months. It may only be 1, but it wouldn't be 0. So I want you to think about when you're going to pay that monthly fee. Did they let you go to the gym for the whole month and then charge you at the end? No, right? You're going to have to pay that fee at the start of the month. Does that make sense? So right when you sign up is also when you're going to pay for that first month. So I understand where you're coming from. When I sign up, I haven't actually done a month at the gym yet. But if we're concerned with the cost, then I'm going to base this on when I am making those payments. Does that make sense? Because you're going to pay that whole month of using the gym at the beginning of the month. Does that make sense? Okay. So in that first month, I would have my $200 fee plus the $40 for the first month. So that would be $240. And then every month that I continue to be a member at the gym, I'm going to add on $40. So this would be $280, $320, $360, $400, and $420. Now you probably had the same values I had, right? For 1 month, $240, for 2 months, $280. Okay. And then I'm going to set up my graph. So we know that this is time on the x-axis, and this is going to be money on the y. I'm going to, again, do my time skipping every other tick. Oh, what? Oh, 440, sorry. Because I added wrong. Thank you. And then our money, we've got big numbers here, and it's a big jump until we even get to our first value. So I'm actually going to go by, I think I went by 20s here. So this would be 20, 40, 60, 80, 100, 120, 140, 160, 180, 200, 20, 40, 60, 80, 300, 20, 40, 60, 80, 400. And then plot my points. 1 comma 240, 2 comma 280, 3 comma 320, 4 comma 360, 5 comma 400, and then 6 comma 440. Should I connect these points? Oh, I've got conflicting head shakes and nods. Make your argument for connect the points. Bless you. I'm going to pause you right there. So you said we can continue our membership, right? I stopped at 6 because I had to stop the table somewhere, right? So the idea of I can continue this membership on is actually not about connecting the points. It's about, should I have an arrow on that end? So if we hop down to question C, do we need arrows? You're telling me, what your reasoning is telling me is, yes, I should have an arrow. I'm going to throw an arrow on that end. Should I have an arrow on this end as well while we're doing arrows? No, right? But being able to be a member of the gym for longer than 6 months doesn't actually tell me if I should connect these points. Yeah, that's the thing we're asking when we ask, should I connect these? Is it possible to be a member of the gym for 1.5 months? Well, I can stop going to the gym after 1.5 months, but are they going to refund me part of the membership fee that I paid, part of that monthly fee? No. So if I want to, so since we're talking about something that's a monthly subscription, if I want to cancel partway through a month, I certainly can contact that company and say, I'm done, but they're generally not going to give me part of that money back based on the amount of time into the month I am. So if I'm 5 days into the month and I decide this gym is not for me, I've already paid them that whole $40 and I'm not going to get any portion of that back. If I go for 28 days in the month and decide I don't want to be at this gym anymore, that's fine. I cannot go for the last couple of days, but I'm again not getting any portion of this $40 back. So we don't want to connect this because we've got this monthly subscription set up here. Questions for me on page 10. Okay. Couple of tricky problems here.